on that's kind of like flesh tone, because whenever you paint, you never cover the canvas entirely. There's always going to be some canvas showing through. And when I do a nude, I'd rather have the color that's showing through a nice clean color rather than some awful brown or gray. It gives it a little bit more sparkle.
Do you ever work on a canvas that's toned before?
What's that?
Do you ever work on a canvas that's toned before? Like you start up with the same tone?
Yeah, sometimes I tone it. If I got here earlier, I would have had it toned already, so it's kind of dry. But I'd like to tone it according to the subject that I've got. Because the landscape, I have a greenish brown tone on it. I just don't use an arbitrary tone that's already there, and I just have to adapt to it. But there, sometimes you can tone a canvas that's kind of neutral. You can use it with just about anything. The only thing about this is that it makes it a little bit less work getting more clean color if it's already a clean color to begin with. I don't have to undo a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
First thing you have to remember about painting a nude is don't panic. It's a problem in life and color, shapes and values just like anything else. You just have to be a little extra careful in the drawing because you don't have the latitude for mistakes that you can get away with in still life or landscape or a portrait for that matter. Also, you can't hide things. In portrait, you can stick the hands in pockets or in the landscape. Put a tree where it is and move it over and walk in. That's a good way of avoiding hitting ears. Well, you can't hide some things that way. What I'm doing now is just for general placement of the figure. I'm not too concerned with drawing just the larger areas, just to get the design of the canvas. I'm not going to worry about the seats in this thing, because the portion of the canvas can go wrong. So if I strung out the whole figure, you'd have a composition about like that. Which is okay if you have a lot of other elements in the picture that would provide you a composition. For example, if we have some light cloth or some other objects in there to fill out an interesting pattern, then you can get away with a figure that small on the canvas, or you could build objects in the room. So it would be not necessarily a straight figure painting that I intend to do. I'm going to try and fill it up so that the torso occupies about that much space. If it only occupied that much space, then it would be like an interior composition, not just a figure painting. But you have to move around, setting up and putting in objects until it composes itself. So you'd be more concerned with, in the setup part of it, you'd be concerned with the design of the painting. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'd like to be more, and that other way of doing it, that's a long, complicated painting involving still life as well as figure painting. I thought you're most interested to see how I handle flesh tones and edges and that sort of thing. Why I chose the back view too, because drawing is uncomplicated. I've only got 3 hours to fool around with it. And I can get, the shape is essentially simple. I don't have to worry about doing a portrait. I don't have to worry about all the complications of doing eyes and hands. That's why I'm not worried about feet. I'm going to concentrate on just the shape there, very simple. And yet its very simplicity makes it complicated, because being a simple shape, my problem is to make it interesting. time do we do the model?
2.5 hours. There's a bell that rings
Oh, okay.
every few minutes.
I was worried about the model. Die.
She likes to do it.
Always happy. Those are the basic shapes now. Nothing I haven't indicated yet. We will have those. Notice at this point, or even from the very start, there's already a feeling of the hard and soft edges. This one here, for example, this distance up here, this one here, the softness over here. In the very beginning of consciousness, the edges giving you a sense of third dimension. Now these edges down here are going to change between each time she gets up and lays down again. There's no guarantee that this is going to be in the same position, so I'm going to leave that with the vague at this point. And having gotten the main masses of color and light in there, the point where I would slow down and then start really nailing out this edge here. That is the thing that tells the whole story about that and the unseen spine down here that gives the curve to the back. At this point, I'm not worried about the anatomy. I'm not telling myself that I'm looking at the discus dorsal or the scapula or the triangle there, the pelvis, and all that business. At this point, it's simply a bunch of shapes and colors. If I see something that is ambiguous, say these folds here, these roots there, I can fool around with that according to my knowledge of anatomy. I know that I can increase them or decrease them or make them more pleasing, or I can take 10 pounds off her if I want to. In that case, I am using my knowledge of anatomy. That's where anatomy is very important. It's also important if she moves significantly. The bumps, the shapes, the lights, the shapes of the lights and darks, the colors are going to change subtly. And if you keep chasing those around each time she moves, you're going to ultimately get lost because as her body relaxes and as she changes slightly between each 25-minute session, it's never going to be precisely the same. So your knowledge of the rib structure, the pelvic structure, and the superficial or the larger muscle structures is going to tell you whether this is correct, whether this looks like she can actually someday get up and walk again. Well, why don't we take a little break now and I'll clean this off and then we'll get into the opening.
I was kind of, you know, do it. It's a great this is a great view when you step aside. Usually, we always have it, but see, see what would be the best angle, best honestly, we were over there.
I'm not worried about indicating head at this point because when I squint down at this, the head just disappears in the background, so it's just a value as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't represent a key area of drawing, except when I get down in here, trying hair against the body itself, and then I can take a lot of liberties and give the hair more flowing quality to it. Like that before, the whole story is right in here, all these beautiful edges around in here. This part down here is relatively simple, but I have to be careful that it doesn't get superficial because there are very few things to latch on to except for the edges where the cloth meets the clay. There's no real drawings in the anatomy. There's no great lights and darks to explain. But really explain in terms of what's line against it. That's opposed to this part here, which is explained in terms of the form itself, the way it turns, how slowly and how quickly. That in turn is explained by hardness and softness, edges, and changes in direction of the drawing. Always when you do a nude or any or a portrait, you want to be careful not to make a big curve. They do a lot of that in Victorian painting, where you see the nudes or the hippos in one big loaf of bread. That was over idealizing. Old school thought that simplify the shape, take away all the little bumps and everything, and make it purify it or something by making it a geometrical curve going towards it. There was another school of thought about painting that said, never put concave shapes on the nude because that represents death. The body is dead. You have fluids go off and you get hollows where you get bumps before. So nudes became a series of bumps like that. But I like to get my own feeling about it in drawing, especially in a situation like this, where it's virtually a silhouette against the background, is that to give it strength to drawing, I look for changes in direction. The thing goes that far, stops, and then goes somewhere else. In other words, for me, it's a series of straight lines. It's two straight lines. A series of straight lines to me is stronger than one simple curve. Because on a curve, you don't know where it starts to go this way and where it doesn't. No specific point. You can get that feeling of pervasiveness by softening the edge. What are you saying? Distortion?
Yeah, right. When you know better, you know.
Like what kind of
Like the
distortion?
past.
Oh, you mean that real distortion? Well, you're actually getting into modern art then. You're getting into interpretive painting, where you are not bound, you've not set yourself limits on expressing visual reality.
Have you ever felt like when you think and trying to
Once in a while I get a mean streak and I want to put a mustache on my model or something. But my distortion is limited to altering the figure closer to my heart's desire. Okay.
Expression, I read a part of the book about so beautiful that you feel like distorted.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole different form of art. It's a departure from the concept of expressing reality as we experience it and expressing more inner reality, which is part of the whole, which is the basis of the modern art movement, was the turning away from nature, external nature, to express oneself, and turning inward to express, it went along with the Freudian movement, the development of psychology and the breakdown of morality and all kinds of things. Artists reflected the turmoil that people, writers and musicians and intellectuals were going through. And the process that we know as modern art, I'm getting into philosophy of art, but it's a dangerous thing. The process was to turn away from almost 5 centuries of clear direction in art, to express our reaction to what's outside of us, our inner reaction to it, through expressing that sort of thing, rather than expressing the inner thing itself. The inner thing itself was of meaning only to the people that did it. So that if you were to distort something, you wouldn't be telling me anything except that you were distorting it. It wouldn't have the same meaning to me as it would to you. But if I paint something that all of us experience relatively the same, I would be telling you something quite specific about it. You wouldn't know exactly what I was saying, but you'd get a pretty good idea of what I was trying to say. But to comment further, I would say distortion, any kind of freedom in art, that's the name of the game. And you ought to explore it anytime you feel like it, but use this as your foundation, this kind of painting. Picasso did, using him as an example. Because I don't think you can distort something unless you know what you're distorting from, what it's supposed to be like. If you can do something out of pure ignorance, in that case it's not deliberate distortion, it's just making mistakes. Right now.
I wonder if I guess if he's cold. Yes, go ahead.
not explaining too much about what I'm doing right now, obviously, because this is a matter of concentration. It would be hard to tell you what I'm doing. I just assume that you are following the sequence of strokes as I explain the areas as I go along. They're not self-explanatory. I'm not thinking very well. I remember a story, and I think Bill Parks gave it to me. Bill gave me a story about somebody describing Sargent painting. Maybe somebody read it. It tells about how he was doing his portrait, and he'd pick up a cigar, and he'd go like that, and go like that. It went on for an hour, and then the phone rang, and it just killed him. He just put everything down quick. Because he was just going so hard on it, and it was unfolding like a chess game. It was just beautiful. And the train was derailed. It's like, kind of like the Zen thing where you ask a centipede which leg he picks up first. If he has to think about it, he's it's true, really. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mr. Schmid, are those, somebody may have asked this, are those just regular napkins you're using, or what?
Oh, these are shop towels. These are,
Okay.
I get them from an industrial supply place. And they've got some kind of nylon. They're supposed to be washable. They have little nylon threads in them that make them very strong. I use them for wiping machinery and stuff. And I buy a huge carton of them, about a couple of thousand, for about $20. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know where to get them? Okay. What do I do with it? Do I use it?
Then you're paying down.
In this case, I gave you mineral spirits, which I guess is what you self-store here, or terpenoid, or anything like that. I don't use any medium. Maybe that's what you're asking about. One of the mediums that they have in the store. But they have linseed oil, turpentine, and varnish. That's basically what it is. I like to use turpentine because it's more of a mineral spirit. It tends to evaporate almost completely. Whatever little residual oil is left blends in with the linseed oil. It's already paint, just oxidizes. And it doesn't yellow the paint like mediums will. Any of the gel mediums or any of the liquid mediums that are sold will yellow almost two values in a short period of time, like a couple of years. But I wouldn't use it for anything else. finally you're going to make a little bullet stroke and then drips all over. It crossed my mind.
Are you ever conscious of how you would stay up one area and
Yeah, sometimes I just say, what am I doing here? I've been hung up on this for a long time, and then I just have to look and say, why am I doing that? And say, maybe I'm missing the point. Getting hung up on detail. Somebody asked me about any detail. That's usually the case. Or I start looking at one thing all the time instead of stepping back. This way, I don't know if you people are taught, is that part of the thing, to step back a lot and always, see the big picture, always compare. And then sometimes you step back and you don't have to put any more on it. From back here, it reads just fine. I could, like down in here where this springs over, you see how it goes in there? There's more color changes in there, you could just keep all day on that. See? If you step back and you just see one or two simple shapes and the correct edges, the right value, and that's it. So you don't have to say, this is where something starts, and this is where the reflected light comes in, and this is where the flesh continues, and this is where the cloth goes. As long as it gives the visual impression from a reasonable distance, and somebody said the right distance to judge a painting is 4 times the largest dimension of the picture. I don't know who made that up. It's kind of a rule of thumb they made up for judging impressionistic pictures. So a picture is, 2 feet, you're supposed to look at it 8 feet away or something. Maybe there's some truth there, but I guess the point is that you want to get back far enough so that you can see the thing as whole and not, at this point, for example, I can look at here, what's over here, I'm only seeing in peripheral vision. Whereas if I get back there, it's only taking a small part of my retina that I can actually focus on.
Mr. Schmid, would you ever put in detail so that you would think, well, maybe somebody will come up close, and I want to give them something?
Yeah, I do that in the studio sometimes. When I sit down in a chair, especially, and I find that I've actually got a magnifying glass sometimes when I'm working with. But that's when I'm doing a picture that's only that big. Mm-hmm. It's a very bad habit to get into it. And it's very easy to do it, especially working from photography. And it's fatal once you get locked into it. Because then all you're doing is making enlarged photographs. Instead of seeing a photograph as like you would see a working sketch or something that you worked on, that you have done yourself, using it merely as a piece of information. And not as something that slaves the copy. There's going to be a little more work necessary in here because all of the values, I haven't put all the values in there necessary to make it look really solid. By putting in this dark against all these lights and everything, I brought this part of the painting into a full value, from very light to dark, almost dark to dark. It's not pure black, but the contrast is so great that it has the effect of full value, whereas this part doesn't. It doesn't quite fit. It looks superficial at this point, but it's a rather complicated bunch of little shapes in there. I'm going to wait till the next break to find to do that. And then, after I get that nailed down, then the next thing would be the head and how the hair falls across there, and getting that. And that's it. I mean, that's all I really have to say about it. Just to go beyond that point would be to go into a whole greater extent of finish on the painting. It'd be a different kind of painting. Then I have to go and do a lot of repainting it here. Okay?
Yeah. Yes,
Somebody's asked me about using pure blue. What does that do? I'll tell you what happens. We were talking about using a more identifiable gray in these areas here. Right? The expression of white is to get more blue instead of easier gray. It's something that most people talk about all the time. You say, if you have a choice when you're doing a gray, you make it identifiable. Either make it a blue gray or a yellow or a green gray or purple gray. If it's a warm gray, make it red or orange or yellow or something. Don't just make it neutral. And it can be really pushed. Now, the Impressionists pushed it terrifically, where they got pure blues in their darks. And they got away with it because usually they were dealing with sunlight. And it can be done. The question is that the effect you want? Like, see, I can go in there like that. And, you know, it's more colorful. It really isn't that blue. But when you're heating a light that is this warm, by hitting that blue, it makes everything else look warmer on this side, so it gives more of a punch to the picture. So you can do it. The question is how much color do you want to put into it. As long as it doesn't look garish, it's a matter of judgment. That's what color is all about. It is true that all color is no color. If this were all pure color, it would be just as boring as if it were all gray. Something's always got to predominate, which means one color is going to predominate as pure. Something is going to be gray. Either in like if you're doing, I was going to say, the aggregate mixture, which say you could put down pure color spots like the Impressionists did. Every spot was a pure mixture, like Syrah, for example. And then when you got back, it all blended together to form a bunch of blue and red spots, which was perfectly, right? A bunch of blue spots and yellow spots with green. He was dealing with the same problem, that even though all the spots he put down were pure color, maybe he'd have two blue spots and a red one, and he'd stick a yellow one in there. Even though they were all pure color, when he got back, the spots that were in the majority were predominant. So you get the effect of pure blue in there amongst the red. It works out, depending on the distance to which you're looking. Talking about color, you sound like idiots, in fact. The words fail us. We're talking about visual things for which there is no substitute for color itself. That's what thinking is all about. The language, there's no way I can describe her in words in the same terms that I'm describing her to you. That's what handwriting meant. We talked about that thing in front of the book where it says there are moments in our days and moments in our lives when we see beyond the ordinary and we can express this, that the arts were created. That's what he's talking about. Art is language to express qualities. In this instance, something about a human being she couldn't say in words. The poet could say it in words, but it wouldn't say the same thing that I'm saying. Okay? He couldn't say that. No way. Easels when you move over to Michigan. Right? Yeah. When I'm working in the studio, I was trying to think this big. I clean the palette probably 4 or 5 times every half an hour. I have a big glass palette, big spaces. Always keep fresh paint, clean paint. Oops. That doesn't happen. It's just a truism about painting. Whatever's on the palette is going to end up on the canvas. They should be changed about twice already. Because I'm using a lot of paint, a lot of brush mixed up. I'm using a lot of brushes. And on a small painting, you wouldn't have to change it very often, but depending on how often you wash the brushes, as soon as you can dip in and come out with, an actual tone like that, it's dirty. And it's going to get in paint no matter, you can never wipe the brush clean enough to get that out of it. So if you try and get a clean, pure white, it would be impossible unless you used a fresh brush. So usually you have two of these going. One that's dirty and one that's clean. And when the dirty one gets too bad, I throw that out, then the next one becomes the dirty one and clean. So it's just my way of working. I've seen guys work with palettes that are just atrocious. I mean, just mountains of muddy color, and they just kept building up and building up and building up and getting cleanest color you ever saw. But they never washed the brushes out, and they never swoosh around like I'm doing. It was always just building fresh paint upon fresh paint, so they just take to the top. It's like whipped cream off or something, and then putting it on. And, it's everybody's personal way of working. I just find that whatever's on there is going to end up there.
Do you ever save your choice and let you take several weeks?
Sometimes, yeah.
Is there any reason why you should not do that? Always done that.
If I'm feeling real cheap. The only reservation I have about that is that when turpentine is a volatile oil, as opposed to a volatile solvent. Volatile solvent like gasoline or acetone will evaporate totally. This, when it evaporates, the volatile solvents within it are evaporating and it becomes more and more like oil over a period of time, say a week or 2 weeks. If you cover it, that's better. But after a while, even if you let clean, fresh turpentine just sit, not putting anything in it, it'll get yellower and yellower and yellower because it evaporates and it becomes more and more oily.
What if you cut it with paint and everything?
Oh, if you keep adding fresh stuff to it, there's no reason why you couldn't use it endlessly.
What about the paint that goes on that stuff in the yard, ripening? Which I could.
I don't know. Turpentine is not supposed to be harmful. Don't drink it. Maybe use inhale turpentine as a way to open up your nasal passages, you know, so you get picture
Mr. Schmidt?
It's not harmful like acetone or diglipine, that's pretty stuff. What? I guess so, I don't know. It's supposed to be chemically identical. I would guess so, yeah. That's the skill, see.
Mr. Schmidt? Excuse me. Do you ever mix more than 3 colors together at a time?
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's just a general rule, but, you know, to keep the color clear. They say you're supposed to be able to get what you want by mixing only 2 of these colors with white. But I find that I'm dipping all over the place to get what I want. Well, especially when I'm working in a hurry. But, yeah, as a general rule, you should know how to mix so that you could only stick into two colors plus white to get what you want.
Does that mean you're mixing on the canvas?
No, you mix it here. Like, for example, if you wanted to get, like, because there's more than one way to get the color, see? If you wanted to get, say, this color up here, you could get it by mixing this and this, and then do that, and then you do that and say, well, you know, it's not quite right, it's almost there, but now I need some of this, and then you do that, and, you know, you're constantly making little decisions that modify it until it gets just where you want it. The person who can just go ding, 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 and get it like that, you know, it's very rare that you can do that. You always have to do that, do this, do that. But when they say that, what they want you to do is not just to mix color by guesswork and say, well, let's try this and let's try that. You should be able to get close to it by mixing, say, 2 of these colors plus white, or 3 at the most. When you start, you know, going the whole business, you know, saying, oh, it's some of this, it's some of this, it's some of this, it's some of this, that's where you're guessing. See? Right.
Come on. I'm a little...
Huh? You lost it?
Yeah, you lost me.
What?
Oh,
In mixing?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, the rationale behind it is that when you see a color, you're supposed to be able to say most colors are grays, okay? They're classified as grays. I don't mean the gray of the sweater or the gray of the background, but I mean the color that is not pure is called gray. You're supposed to be able to look at something and be able to identify the family, okay? Now, there are only 6 of them: red, yellow, blue, green, purple, orange. Okay, now, before you even mix it, you're supposed to say, okay, I'm going to mix an orange gray, I'm going to mix a purple gray. Then, having gotten that far, you could say, all right, it's purple gray. Now, it's purple towards the red or towards the blue. Okay? That should limit you to a choice of, say, 2 colors, maybe 3 at the most. You certainly, say you're going to mix a purple gray. Well, that kind of eliminates most of the cadmium towards the yellow side, right? And it restricts you to colors on a palette that already consist of either blue or red. So right away eliminates brilliant, okay? You pretty much know the way through and good sienna. So what you're doing is just, it's a process of elimination. So your choice should be this, or one of the reds, plus white, to bring it to whatever value you want. That's what we're talking about.
That's where they say it, or is that?
You're supposed to be able to do that eventually. I don't know how you've been painting, but eventually you will. I mean, it's like somebody, you know, when you learn the piano or something, you're supposed to, and they say, you know, it's in the key of F or it's in the key of C. Well, you know, that it just eliminates a whole bunch of stuff that you have to worry about. And you should be able, with experience, to go to the note and know the scale. All the sharps and flats of that key. It's the same thing with painting. When you say, you know, you're going for the purple family, well, it just eliminates a whole lot of stuff. That's what they're doing. Nothing great?
Another one.
Okay, well, this is the home stretch on this thing. I'm not going to carry this. I'm going to leave that now because I'm going to nail this down. So this will just be the finishing process, really. Just trying to explain what this business is for it and to identify this shape. And then finally to get the and then at the very end, a couple of highlights. Saving all this time. This was so clever, I got rid of all the hands. doing something like here, you have to really be aware of that in context of the rest of the figure and change it value. Because if you look at the hair all by itself, you're going to start seeing differences in contrast that almost go from pure white to pure black. And it just isn't so. You squint down, there's nothing. Hair on hair is everything that is like it's anything you buy. Not in this case. Maybe in blonde it might be. So you have to watch out. Just like hair on that. There's no overly shiny. If you want to get your function of the hair, you can go with color. For example, instead of getting lighter, you can get bluer. Get color. And you can go into color changes too. Like any time you have a choice between changing the value of the color, the color goes to color. If you have almost infinite colors to choose from, the amount of values when you run it down, that's it. It's the point where if I went too much further, it becomes a different type of pain. All too often, I become bad because flipper on the hair. I talk to myself like this. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. It's part of the talent that you have that you know when you're stuck. If I kept going on the hair, it'd just be a mess. I'm going to quit. That's it. Move down with the background a little bit. Now, I have to explain it. If I were doing this in my studio, I had the opportunity and time to set this up myself, as opposed to coming here and taking what's there, the background and so on. I was giving a lot more thought to what's back in here and what's here. We talked a little bit about design. So, to that extent, this doesn't represent the way I would typically paint in the studio. I do a lot more fooling around up in here. I have things that kind of add to the lines and figure. Things that continue public design is always there. That's good. This is a very dangerous stage, actually. We actually ruin painting by starting too taking too many liberties. Take a pound out here, a pound out there, pushing it around. This is where you really want to step back and say, is there anything I can do at this point to make this better? I cannot do it. Thank God we leave it alone. There's just one or two little things. Just to highlight it, to really give it just a little bit more. Yeah, heavy and yellow. Same thing. Heavy. Just a little This is the point where they're really ruined. Not accent, not dark accents as much, but highlights, become like all metal. Everything will be so shiny and colorful. That's it. Still have half an hour for
How soon do you let yourself get that or go to the smaller brushes, and do you ever use the small stable brushes for detail?
Yeah, when I'm doing little bitty painting, if this were a front view when you had the head and the eyes and everything, fingernails, then go to the small brush.
Not until you really block it in. At what point do you let yourself do it? Because once you get there, it's very hard to give up it.
Only when we only go with small brushes when we're dealing with too many little areas that require, especially things that require mind. But even with a brush as big and clumsy as this, I can get very, very delicate stuff. Even put the highlighter on it with a brush like that. I don't need a small brush. It's amazing what you can do with a large, good brush. It's personal preference. I just avoid small brushes. Because it helps me avoid getting into a lot of detail. Keep it painted.
Just trying to, like, me and I.
Sure.
Did you?
Like, see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, keep it on. Anybody got a canvas board?
Yeah.
When it comes to highlights, what do you usually base your decision on what color to use them on?
Well, depending on the color of the light in here. I was thinking of talking about this, like, you can get a terrific punch in a highlight by reversing the color temperature of light that we're working in. Like, we're in very hot, warm light, okay? You can make that highlight stand out as if she were made out of stainless steel by, instead of making that highlight with cadmium red or cadmium yellow, by making it cobalt blue. And if you needed that kind of a punch, say you were doing somebody with real oily skin, or say, like, we used to have a black guy coaching, or an Indian, somebody with real dark skin, or real oily skin, or shiny skin. The profession did it a couple of times. You know, the electric blue highlights, much exactly the same value as what's on here, but see how it stands out here. As we reverse the value. Let's do it. No, I can't. It wasn't there. That was better anyway. Now, this is nobody's eye in particular, but these are some of the principles, some of the things you run into in painting a typical eye, okay? By that I mean an eye where somebody is facing you, almost facing you, the light is coming from above or slightly to one side, okay? Now, you all know that, okay, this is going to be somebody's left eye, all right? This represents the corner of the inside corner. There's the nose, the eyebrow, and all that. This would be inside corner. Now, you know that the curves on the eye that are formed by the upper and lower lid inverse one another. The curve on the lower part of the eye is a slow curve, then a fast curve upwards. On the inner side of the eye, that curve and a slow curve, not exaggerated. You've got that effect, right? Opposite. When you're doing something that has both eyes in the painting, you always want to do the eyes. These are my own rules I'm giving you. I've read these rules before. They don't necessarily, they're not rigid, but it's the way I do it. Okay? We have to keep myself in mind. Always do one thing on one side and the other thing on the other side. If you complete one eye at a time, they're not going to match. That has to do with the alignment, the color, values, those curves, everything. What I like to do, I'm going to do it like actual size, right size. Place them, that's about the size of the real eye, so one eye space, one eye width apart. And if the person is looking at you, place those dots so that it looks like a real pair of eyeballs looking right at you. You can place them in funny way, place one below the other or something. Make sure they're lined up. If your head is tilted, make sure that the tilt is correct and that you follow the right alignment. If it's curved, make sure they're on that curve. Alignment is so important. If you don't get the alignment correct, the person is going to look retarded, diseased, or something's wrong with them, and the observer isn't going to quite figure it out. All they know is something's wrong with that person. Fast forward and start. Make sure it's still looking right at you. Now, the whites of the eyes are not white. Whites of the eyes in painting are more like cool gray texture. They're actually painted in white. The effect would be so startling, it would be like those monsters and horror movies. Also, the eyes are never as blue or as green or as brown as you think they are. It's always a modified blue or brown. If they get much too blue, it looks phony. That's like those people with contact lenses. Let's say this is a blue-eyed person. Now, to keep a person from looking like they're looking at you in startled surprise, always remember that the top of the eye is always partly covered, almost half covered, not quite half, but just so that the pupil is fully visible. The bottom of the pupil almost always touches the bottom of the top of the lower lid. If any more white than that shows, there's a distinguished surprise look. And edges are very important in the eye, too. To keep the eye from looking startling. Again, the eye has to have a calm, we're talking about portraits now, it's got a calm, steady look. Therefore, the edges on the eye have to be, it meets the white of the eye, it should be soft. Okay? Now, since the light is coming from above, the top part is going to have a cast shadow on it too. The top lid is casting shadow on the white of the eye. So that's going to be a soft edge too. Now we're ready to indicate the lid. Again, we're always talking about subtlety in the eye. If the lid is catching too much light, the person looks too heavy lidded. See how the one eye looks like this part is falling asleep, the other one. Always look to, at this stage in painting the eye, always look to underplay it. Because that's going to be exaggerated, that light is going to be exaggerated by the fact that it's almost always surrounded by dark because of the eye socket. By the way, see how heavy lidded it becomes as soon as you put the bark in the socket. It's almost like cartooning. Every element that you put on changes the existing element. So you want to knock that value down, soften it. Of course, the eyes don't exist all by themselves. They're modified all the time by face around it. So as soon as we put in a little bit more of the face, put in the bridges and arrows, put in more stuff up here. And the little back heads on the outside. These two, everyone has a different fat deposit there. It's not muscle. They still participate in the orbit of the eye, in the socket, I'm going to say. So that they're never as light as anything on the forehead or on the cheek. Never find anything within the eye socket itself that is high or any of the elements is like anything outside of it. Now, not the bottom of it. I'll show something. Now, when you're doing a little inside part of the eye, the lacrimal gland there, it's always kind of pink and mansion. Really start to play. Don't get it too red. It looks like the person started too much tonight, a little something. A little bloodshot look to it. Top part of the pupil receives the most shadow from the upper lid. So it's always going to be darkest right underneath the lid. And then the pupil itself, the darkest part of the eye. Now the eye is transparent. Therefore light, which I'm, because of the way I painted here, let's say we're assuming the light is coming a little bit from this direction, from the painted light. It goes through a transparent object and hits the other side. So that this side is going to pick up, I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit here. This side is going to pick up the light part. The other side is going to pick up the highlight, because the highlight strikes the surface. Okay?
You also get more color with it? You also get more color with the light?
On this side, yeah. The opposite side of the light. The color in the eye is always going to be opposite the light. On this side and this side. Now that's a little too glassy eye, but I just exaggerated it just for effect. See, all of a sudden that eye became wet. Now you can animate that eye any way you want, you know. You can You can put that person on verge of tears by creating a little highlight there. See? It makes this person look like they're going to fall asleep in a minute. It's so expressive. Every little thing you do creates a new expression for the eye, even if accidentally.
Here, approach.
Yeah. Dramatize the eyes, and you can be a makeup artist. Makeup artist, all kinds. That's quality. There's no end to it. You can do. Super dramatic. The slant of brows is crucial to painting an eye because things like that, you've got a person, you've got a very ambiguous person, not one goes down, one goes up. A worried person. Reporting a very intense person, and just a little bit of cold in there, you know, you've got anger.
Could you make calls?
What's that, right?
Could you make calls? Change?
Old age.
Old age.
78 years.
Me? Well, old eyes are characterized by wrinkles, first of all. They droop, you've got that sort of thing. Heavy, very heavy on the underlid. That's you've got an age already. Old people tend to, their eyebrows get lighter, so that you get less drama with gray eyebrows, unless they're very heavy. That's why one of the most dramatic things is an older man or an older woman who retain their dark eyebrows, and heavy dark eyebrows. There's nothing more sinister. We all remember John L. Lewis, you know, when Burt Reynolds gets to be an old timer, and the guy's going to have a fantastic pair of eyes. That page right there. And also on the lids, the eyelashes get great too. Yeah, they show they get deeper setting here. You notice in older people, you notice the actual shape of the eye socket itself. It gets more and more skull-like. But it's not all by itself. It's also in connection with the temples become exaggerated, and you get the temporal bones, and you get the cheekbones become more exaggerated. So that it's part of a whole facial syndrome where that's exaggerated there, and that one down there, and so on and so on. It's part of the whole business. Anyway, that's how you